Well, we are joined today by David Balzer. He is the producer of this amazing audio documentary, and we're going to get around to that in just a little bit. He also works at Canadian Mennonite University. For those who don't know you, let's get started there. Share a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I'm a storyteller and I love audio and radio. So I've been at CMU for 15 years. I was asked to, as I explain it, imagine all of it and teach some of it in terms of a communications program. I by no means am the only one teaching there in communications, but I have had the privilege of being the program coordinator. But prior to that, I was at a place called Family Life Network at the time, now Square One, a media production house here in the city. And that put me into radio production, interviews. I did a lot of public speaking. I did a talk show on CJOB called God Talk for 11 years every Sunday night. So I was in that radio audio world. And my parents weren't planning to be broadcasters, but way back in the day. So I grew up in Quito, Ecuador, in South America, in a little shortwave radio production center. And so my first radio interview that I gave was when I was 5.
Wow.
So, and I'm an identical twin. So we had just shown up there in Quito, and they had this little show called Tiny Treasures. And so me and my brother went to this show, and they interviewed us of what it meant to be a twin, and we basically lied a lot, and because we said we really liked each other. No, my parents were shocked at the interview, but so I've kind of grown up around broadcast and radio, and fell in love with that medium.
I love that. And your most recent project now is this audio documentary, Oh My God, the Audio Doc. Tell us a little bit about how this all got started and where your interest or surrounding this phrase began.
Yeah, I started the audio doc and this question before most of my students were born, almost literally. So it goes back to 2006. So I was doing the radio show, and I had some friends at University of Manitoba. They wanted to do something creative on campus, and I got this idea to do a live show out of the university center. And so we were trying to pick a theme. And during that week, we were going to have coffee, going to have lunch. I was going to campus that week, and I'm like, okay, what could we do that would kind of bridge between our interest about who God is and culture? And this phrase, oh my God, came up in my thinking. And so I went to this meeting at lunch. We were sitting at what was Wise Guys at the time, having fish and chips. And I'm like, what if we just ask people when they said, oh my God? And they're like, how do we create a radio, like a whole event out of that? I said, well, let's try it. So I turned around to a group of students behind us, and I said, hey, when was the last time you said, oh my God? And the guy who was sitting at the front of the table at the end there with a bunch of friends, he says, oh, I said, oh my God, this morning when I looked in the mirror. And the table just lost it, right? Anyway, so it goes on from there, but I turned around and I said, I think this is gonna work. Like, let's try it. So that was 18 years ago. And I've kept asking that same question. When was the last time you said, oh my God, for literally 18 years? And I've been I've been on a lot of street corners, in a lot of parks, and ended up talking to people who just really exploring my curiosity. Like, where did it come from? What about the history? So then I talked to kind of people on the street all the time, and then I'd hear them say something, and that would pique my curiosity, and then go back and find somebody who could help me understand it. So that's been the journey. Now, I haven't been doing that every day for 18 years. There were some gaps, but the tape, so to speak, the audio that is in this doc literally spans all of those moments.
So you already touched on it. You've been working at this for 18 years. After a decade, after 15 years, at what point are you like, maybe I should round this off? Maybe I should why 18 years?
Well, for one, some people may not appreciate this, but I'm just glad people are still using it, because otherwise the audio doc wouldn't have any audience anymore. So that was kind of a personal, I'm glad they're still seeing it, because I haven't finished this edit yet. But yeah, why 18 years? There's a bunch of reasons. One is I was going to do a bunch of projects out of it. So I did a short film piece. So that was kind of the first leg. And then a student of mine, actually, I was going to do a full feature type film thing because I was so intrigued by it and I was discovering all this stuff. And he said, "Aren't you an audio guy?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he says, "But everyone wants video." That's what I was saying. And he's like, "Well, why don't you do an audio doc? That's kind of your thing." And I realized when I listened to some of the same interviews in audio for the first time, it felt like this is actually the medium that it's going to work in. And the reason is because the intrigue and the nuance and why it's kind of messes with us so much is how we hear it. And so the audio doc lets you actually pay attention to that more than if it was video. So thanks to Josh, my student, who helped me get on the straight and narrow. So, but why 18 years? In part, there was this thing called COVID that happened. So I was almost finished. I was well on the way. And then I had some significant health issues that took me out of work for quite a while. So now I'm back at it. And one of my goals was, let's finish this thing. And I got some funding. Thank you, Shirk. So this academic funding agency, I got a little bit of money to get an editor. I can't say enough about editors. If you want to finish a project, find an editor. So
I agree.
Ibby Caputo I found her. She's this wonderful producer in the UK, works with NPR and these really wonderful podcasts. And she walked me through to help me find my story.
Nice.
So here we are.
I would love to know, how did this become an everyday saying?
Like the phrase, well, listen to the doc. No. So what it is a series of my own questions. That was absolutely one of mine. So where that took me, I was really curious, like, how did this even show up? So there's this whole thing about language and how these pop culture phrases emerge. So I talked to a linguist from the University of Toronto, and okay, this is going to sound a little bit odd, but she says there's 40 years of evidence of this. There's this interesting phenomenon where mostly teen women in California, it's kind of like the epicenter of pop culture language. So if you kind of have a gut sense that that's what's happening, you're probably right. And I'm quoting this person who studies language for a living. So that coupled with this interesting connection between media. So I asked the question, like, did like Friends create Oh My God, the Friends TV series, or did we create it and then Friends picked it up? And her answer was yes. So there's this interesting interplay that something will emerge, people will start playing with it, and then the media will embed it in what we consume, and it kind of feeds it. So you have this interplay. That's one kind of answer. There's also like the history of swearing answer, and there's also a whole where our culture has gone in terms of religiosity. That's another factor. So I weave that into the doc to kind of unpack that question. But literally, I mean, it's not too much to say that there's certain demographics of people that kind of offer us a piece of language. And if the culture kind of picks it up, it kind of takes off. So it's super fascinating. I found it super fascinating. Is that enough of an answer? Does that help?
Definitely. And speaking of fascinating too, I had a chance to not listen to the whole thing. I will finish it. I will. I promise.
It's all good.
What was so interesting to me though is the variety of people that you interviewed, whether it be, the professionals or the streeters. What I want to know though is when you asked this question, what kind of reaction did you get? Because I mean, it's just such a random question, and especially when you're going out to do the streeters with these strangers.
Yeah.
What kind of reaction did you get from these people?
The number one reaction I got was curiosity. People were like, why like I said, I'm doing an audio doc. It's about, oh my God, instantly people often, they'd start laughing. Like that is just hilarious kind of documentary to do. So the first reaction was not this like, oh, I don't want to talk to you. I would say like 80-90% of the people that I literally approached, they were willing to have at least a short conversation with me about what I was doing. And that was surprising to me. It really was. But my working theory on that is that because the phrase is so much a part of our culture, it doesn't feel like a threat. And because it's attached to our experiences, right? We use it to express something. So there's always a story attached to it. So it's right there on the surface. So everyone has content. Because it's this kind of playful or thing that's so pervasive, then people literally gave me time. Like it was crazy. So yeah. And then like I remember this woman in Toronto when I was interviewing this linguist at the U of T. We went down to the park and it was in winter and we were at City Hall at an ice rink there. And so we were just stopping people as they were getting their skates on. And I was just asking them. And this one woman said, well, I said, oh my God, when I saw like this incredible crystal in winter on this bush, right? And then she went and started skating. And then she kept coming back and said, I got another thought. And I also thought about, and maybe it has something to do with awe, and maybe it has something. And she just kept coming back for a half an hour and circling back. She was so taken by unpacking this phrase. So that was the experience, more so than not.
What was the biggest takeaway for you over these 18 years of creating this audio documentary?
So I was trying to figure out what to do with it myself. So this doc is like my personal journey. And I literally didn't have, like I was living with kind of this tension. Because one of the things that I saw was people who have more of a religious interest or conviction, this phrase is really intense. When they hear it, when they feel it in the culture, it's not comfortable. And I would say that's part of my experience was like, whoa, this is a pretty important phrase to me. Like, what do we do with it? And then other people that I met, they, like a woman at U of M, she said, well, I would use it all the time, except for if I was in church. Okay, that's just, I've never forgotten that. She's like, I try not to say it around Christians. I'm like, interesting. You wouldn't say, oh my God, in church. Now, I kind of get what she's saying, but she's nervous about social offense. Anyway, so there's that real tension. So what do I do with it? I've come to resolve what I'm going to do with all the oh my gods. And now that you're listening, if you're listening to this, you might be messed up for life because you're never going to be able to unhear oh my God after listening to the doc. I literally hear every single time anywhere. I hear it every single time. That's a lot. That's a lot. So I need to figure out what to do with it. So I've come to terms with it, but it's my own personal journey. And I won't give it away. It's the punchline of the audio doc, but it only emerged kind of making sense of how am I going to manage this experience and how am I going to manage it with the people I meet? Because at the end of the day, this phrase is in the middle of like language is social and it's intense. We're actually negotiating our beliefs and our experiences. Everybody I talk to about the doc, they say, oh, like, let me tell you a story about this where I didn't like it or where I did like it. Mostly I didn't like it. So that's real. So I found a way to hear it every time and it actually serves me. It actually gives me life. I won't give away how, but it literally, the doc at the end of the day is a very personal journey, personal journey. It's me trying to figure it out. And I feel like, and it only emerged about 4 months ago. This is the thing that's crazy. I've been living with these questions, and I wrote it into into the script. I sent it to the editor. It's the only paragraph she didn't absolutely tear apart. She's like, there it is. There it is. You've landed. You've found a way of making sense of it, and people are going to be curious about what that is.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I grew up in a Mennonite town. I actually still live in said Mennonite town. That is a saying that I grew up. You do not say. You do
Yeah.
not say this.
Yeah.
That is taking the Lord's name in vain. Is that touched on in there, in your doc?
Absolutely. That's one of the chapters. So one of my questions was, because so many people were quoting exactly that commandment on the street, like if I'd say, hey, when was the last time you said, oh my God? I'd say, oh, I don't say that. And I say, why not? Oh, because I don't swear. Oh, well, where did that come from? Well, don't take the Lord's name in vain. So very quickly, we were talking about the Bible on the street. So what I chose to do, so we talk about that. That's the whole history of swearing piece. But I also chose to ask, where is it used in the Bible? Like literally the phrase? Because we've taken the phrase and put it into the third commandment. But the Lord's name in vain doesn't literally say the words in Hebrew, oh my God, right? So I wanted to find out, is that phrase even used anywhere in the Bible? And in fact, it is. And so I unpack that, which for me was super life-giving. That actually helped turn the phrase so that when I hear it, I'm hearing it as it was used in Scripture, which is different than me putting it into the third commandment. We also talk about that, but does that make sense? Right? The literal use of it, or where we think it shows up. So
Right.
I messed with that a bit.
There is a listening party coming up. Tell us some details. How can people get involved?
Yeah, we have a few tickets left. It's a small venue in the Exchange, 188 Princess. That's also a downtown conversational community, a little downtown church that I'm actually part of, and super excited. It's that you can just go to the website, the omgthedoc.com, and there's an invite page there. And we've got free tickets, and it's kind of like when it's full, it's full. So yeah, there's tickets still. I just checked, and there's still some tickets available. It's going to be a fun launch Sunday, February 16. Doors open at 6:30, and we've got Moss Coffee from around the corner in the Exchange bringing coffee and a few surprises as well that we're going to give away. And we're going to sit in a room and listen. I don't know if it's going to work. It's going to be super, because people are so used to like visual, right? But I think I've designed it in a way that you're going to want to kind of keep listening. At least that's the hope, right? So come to a party where you sit with all these awesome friends and listen to a 30-minute audio doc. If that sounds like an awesome way to spend your long weekend, you found the place.
Hey, that could be your next topic for your next audio doc. Would like to listen instead of watch, right? That's a cool idea.
There's a Q&A. There's a Q&A with the producer. My twin brother's coming in from Chicago. He's hosting the Q&A. So I think there'll be just looking at two guys that kind of look the same. Maybe that's fun too. I don't know.
It's going to be awesome. Again, that website, if people want to attend the party and they want to learn more or hear more about the audio documentary, where can they go and learn that?
Yeah, omgthedoc.com. It's right there. And it's we'll also be posting the full audio doc on that website. So if you're not at the event, just go back to omgthedoc.com and you will find the link to listen to it. And then share it with your friends. I mean, my hope is really, I do think for me, it's been enormously life-giving around kind of a complicated phrase for some people. And I'm just excited because like I'm so that phrase now gives me so much joy because of this project. And it hasn't been that for at least some religiously minded people. And I'm trusting that if you listen to the doc, it might actually give you some possibilities.
Love that. Thank you so much for making time for us.
Yeah, thank you. This has been super fun.